All right, what is up, everybody? Elijah here with Elijah Talks Ball. NFL Week 10 recap is in session, and boy, did it not disappoint. Multiple games coming down to the final moment. A Sunday night thriller for the ages. You can tally that one in craziest game of the year. And then, obviously, Pats fan here. We had Caleb Williams, first overall pick versus Drake May. Third overall pick face off today. And we saw dysfunctionality across a couple of teams and organizations kind of rear their ugly head today. So we're going to dive into it. But first, like and subscribe. Comment down below. Make sure you stick through the whole video. I'm going to give out game balls at the end. We're going to add in a coach game ball this week. We usually just do offense and defense. But I want to start shouting out some coaches that really showed up, help their team win. Obviously, you got to win to make it into the coach category. And yeah, it's just nice to give the coaches some love. You know, when the loss happens, it's always on them. When the win happens, they tend to steer some of the credit towards the players, rightfully so. So, want to show the guys some love. And yeah, comment down below on if your team won, players that you thought stood out this week, and then things you're looking for as we're already in double-digit weeks here. You know, week 10 time flying by. It's always a exciting / depressing time because you're like, oh my gosh, how is this season going by so fast? But at the same time, these games become way more meaningful. The developments are no longer really developing. They're kind of, you know, planted in place, and you're just seeing who's going to separate. So we're going to dive into all to the games. And of course, we're going to start with the Sunday night game, and then we're just going to start from the beginning, work our way down after that. So, yeah, let's dive into it. And I'll tell you what, guys. Lions and Texans. Sitting on my couch, obviously waiting for Sunday Night Football. As Carrie Underwood says, I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. I got to be honest, I'm always waiting all week for Pats kickoff. But sometimes the Sunday night games, they're hit or miss, to say. Especially the fact that they can slot some of these games with the premier matchups that they want to move to the night game. Sometimes they're snoozy. And you've watched football all day, and even if you're a junkie like me who will wake up for Giants and Panthers in Germany, even though they're two of the worst teams, I get up and I watch it because I love football. Sometimes you get to the night game and you're a little bit mentally drained, and it's a little bit tough in that first half, especially if it's, you know, a little bit slow to kind of stay invested in the game. But when you have a matchup like Lions and Texans, it keeps that hype train kind of rolling, and you're saying, okay, I went through the first slate at 11 o'clock. I live in Mountain Standard Time. So the 1 o'clock games, you go through that. Sweet. Love it. You're excited. 4 o'clock games, that's when you tend to, you know, you have a little bit of lunch, you get a little bit snoozy, you might doze off for a quarter or two. But you make it through that. It's football nonetheless. Entertaining as ever. But then you get to a night game like this where two of the best teams in the league, Lions, have been dominating everybody. Jared Goff just on an incredible, historic tear. Texans coming off that really, I would say gut-wrenching, but not in the sense that it was close. Just embarrassing loss to the New York Jets on Thursday Night Football, where they got outplayed in every facet. And they're clashing tonight. And you're seeing, okay, are the Texans going to answer? Are the Lions going to enforce their will on this Texans team that I wouldn't say is desperate, but needs to get back in the win column because you're playing for seeding now. And you want to at least, the higher the seeding you get, the better chance you have for at least 2 home games in the playoffs. You know, because that 1 seed obviously is going to be the Chiefs, and we'll talk about their crazy win, but a lot of stuff happening tonight. And so coming into it, those were the questions. You know, how are the Texans going to answer? And, you know, what are the Lions going to look like against a possible Super Bowl contender? And I'll tell you what, this game just simply did not disappoint at every level. As we mentioned, Jared Goff, crazy tear for the past 6 weeks during their win streak. over 80% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. He has been lights out, and this Lions team has just been enforcing their will on every single squad. I mean, they put up 50 against the Titans. Jared Goff didn't even throw for over 100 yards, which is wild. And then they beat the shit out of the Cowboys in Dallas, 47-9. It's just been like that for the Lions this year. Seems like outside of that Bucs game where they got pass happy, nobody can slow this team down. And why would you be able to? When you've got the best offensive line led by Penei Sewell, who is just... We look back at that draft class. Yeah, there was Jamar Chase. Yeah, there was Justin Herbert. Yeah, there was Tua Tagovailoa. I'll tell you what. Or excuse me, Jalen Waddle. And I'm a draft class off. You get what I'm saying. Penei Sewell looking like the best pick in that draft, playing at right tackle. And then you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sonic and Knuckles. It's almost impossible to slow this team down. And then you factor in that the Texans are down Will Anderson and Nico Collins. So it's like, okay, do they have the guns to match? But you could tell that the Texans, boy, did they come out ready to play. You wonder, on a week-to-week basis, sometimes you get these teams where you're like, man, if this team's plays to their potential, nobody can beat them. That's how I feel about Alabama. When they played in the first half against Georgia, and then LSU, where they beat the living piss out of the Tigers on Saturday night. That team, if they play the way they did, can beat anybody. And that's how, when you translate it back to the NFL, there's some weeks where you're like, all right, well, if the Texans play like they did against the Titans and the Cowboys, nobody can beat them. And if the Texans play like they did in the first half against the Lions tonight, nobody could beat them because they come out and they had Jared Goff completely confused, completely bamboozled, and they were flying around in those fresh new helmets, which look like candy apples on Halloween. Real fresh, real nice. And then it all unraveled. So first half, Jared Goff hasn't thrown an interception, barely has turned the ball over this season, especially during their win streak. 3 picks in the first half. First drive. Tipped it up, Jalen Petre, who does not get enough credit. He's like the equivalent of Brian Branch on the Lions, just flies around, plays the run game so well, and just a smart, cerebral, physical football player. Tips it up, picked off. Texans move in, score touchdown, up 7-0. Well, then later in the half, kind of crazy play. Jared Goff kind of gets strip sacked, ball bounces around a couple helmets, Texans pick it off, pick number 2. And then, Hail Marys, you always feel bad for the quarterback because you're just heaving it up and you know that it's an empty stat when the guy gets an interception, unless you're Javon Holland, throwback when he took it at half 100 yards. I think it was against the Titans. That was a crazy play, but nonetheless, 3 picks in the first half. And Texans are down 23-7, the Lions are down 23-7. And you're looking at it like, this is not how they want to play the game. They want to play from ahead, and they want to run the ball, and they had a really tough time establishing the line of scrimmage tonight. But to me, with how the Lions fought in this game, because there was multiple times in this game where you felt like this was the Texans game. It was their night. They just played better. It's no sweat off of the Lions' back. They're still a great team, but Texans came to play at home, Sunday Night Football, coming off that tough loss. Jared Goff throws another 2 interceptions in the second half. But boy, oh boy, did they just figure it out. And this is what you want to see out of great teams. All the cards are against you. Nothing has bounced your way the entire game, but you just figure out a way to win. And as fans, there's nothing more entertaining than 2 of the best teams with a ton on the line playing it down to the wire. I've never seen a moment, multiple moments in this game where, first one, we'll start with Jesse Bates. the 2 field goals he made towards the end of the game, one to tie, one to win. I mean, they made it inside the field goal post by centimeters. I am not quite sure how the ball did not hit the goalpost and at least ricochet out, or maybe even ricochet in. Doesn't matter. It was so close, and it just felt like there was a Lions fan up in heaven coming down, blowing on that ball to get it to slightly make it inside the field goal post. Ends up winning the game. Former bricklayer ends up kicking game-winning field goals a couple times now this year. I mean, just an incredible story. Gives it up to God after the game. Shout out Jesse Bates. Hell of a game for him. But then the second thing, Dan Campbell's coming out, and you know how they interview the coaches either coming out of halftime or going into halftime, and they kind of play it right before the first play or two of the series in halftime. Well, Dan Campbell's all fired up. He's like, you know, we're making good stops. Our offense, we've obviously got to get it rolling, but on defense, we're holding them. It's just 1 or 2 plays here or there that they're breaking it, and it's kind of flipping the field. But we've got to make turnovers. We got to force some turnovers to give our offense a short field and push it in. And while they're interviewing him, Carlton Davis picks the ball off on an amazing diving play. Never seen anything like it, where the coach, they're literally playing his interview, and the defensive player does exactly what they said he needed to do. So just an all-time game. Really, this season especially, you'll put it up there as one of the craziest games. 7 total interceptions in this game. Incredible. 5 for Goff, which is just wild considering the stretch that he was on. CJ Stroud had 2, and they were really tough plays because Goff's, a couple of those interceptions were just shitty, to say the least. But CJ Stroud, that first drive in the second half, just throws the ball behind the guy on an out route, which you can't be late to the outside in the NFL. It's just going to equal an interception almost every time. And then the second one had a guy wide open in the end zone, and I guess he felt like he could just loft it because the guy was so wide open. But Carlton Davis, again, making an amazing play, covering all that ground, picks it off in the end zone. So obviously CJ wish he could take that back and just fire it in there. Totally different game. Texans probably win at that point. So just an awesome, awesome game. And if you're the Lions, this is the grittiest win I've seen you guys have had since Dan Campbell took over. And you've had a lot of gritty games. You had that win against the Packers to eliminate them from the playoffs in the last game of the 2022 season. You faced the Rams, who were red hot in the playoffs last year, wild card round. Jared Goff, first Matthew Stafford, first Lions home game in the playoffs forever. This was the grittiest. I mean, like I said, everything stacked against you and just figured out a way to win. And you're going to have these games later in the season and obviously in the playoffs where shit's just not going your way. But now you have the belief to say, all right, we're down 15. We can't run the ball. We keep turning it over. But we won that one, so why can't we win this one? So obviously it's nice to be in the win column, but it's just nice as a mentality boost to pull these off. And for the Texans, it's not panic time, obviously, because the division that you're in shambles. But Nico Collins cannot get back soon enough. Will Anderson cannot get back soon enough. The splits with Will Anderson playing, I mean, this team is almost unbeatable. And when he's out, obviously, he's one of the best players on the field when he steps on it. And he's your leader. But Nico Collins, man, CJ Stroud, he misses his best friend. And Tank Dell has shown up. Joe Mixon, quiet game, but still having an incredible year. You need that guy, that security blanket where 3rd and 7, I'm going to throw a slant route, and I just got to get it near the guy, and he's going to come down with it. So he was practicing this week, that hamstring. They're kind of finicky. Hopefully he can show up next week. Losing last week against the Jets really hurts considering, now you're going into that game 6-2, feeling really good. Now you're 6-4 in the span of 10 days. So with the Steelers winning, with the Ravens winning, obviously the Chiefs winning, that's tough. Bills winning, all these teams that you're going to be jockeying with playoff seed position. Hurts to drop a game to the Jets and then obviously to the Lions in this heartbreaking fashion. So not panic time for sure. You're going to get Nico. You're going to get Will back. But it needs to happen soon because you got to start stringing some games together. You're not in fear of losing this division, but you don't want to be, the 4th seed going into the playoffs where, say the Steelers end up winning the division, but the Ravens, they're the 5 seed. You don't want to be the Texans facing the Ravens in the wild card round. That's not a good matchup for anybody. So if you're a Texans fan, this one sucks. You got to figure it out. And if you're a Lions fan, you're over the moon. You don't know how it happened, but it happened. So that's all that counts. Moving on, we're going to start with the Germany game. Giants versus Panthers. And a podcast I listened to, John Middlecoff, 3 and Out podcast. It's awesome. He's a former NFL scout. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. He's got great insight. The way he speaks is something I am enviable of. He articulates what he's seen during the week or during the games very well. Very easy to listen to. He said, if you watch this game, you're a sicko. You're an addict. And that's exactly what I am when it comes to football. So I got up and I watched this damn game, and I'm glad I did because it was pretty freaking entertaining. Obviously, I want to see Malik Neighbors, Giants' first-round pick this season, been going off. But Bryce Young, been excited to kind of, see how he's been developing because last week led a game-winning drive against the Saints, and that break with Andy Dalton starting seems to have kind of slowed him down a little bit, and he's making these plays. You saw his personality on display today, and it was exciting. You feel bad for how the season and a half went for him over the past year and a half because he's the first overall pick for a reason. If you go back in time, a lot of people would take Bryce Young first overall in that situation. And this whole thing, he's playing behind a big offensive line. He can't see. It's like, dude, he played in the SEC on Alabama. Like, all those linemen go to the NFL. I don't think it's that. Just tough situation that he was in, but he's coming along the past couple weeks and had a lot of really nice throws today. Couple breaking the pocket, being, more elusive than you would typically think from him, and hitting guys, falling back, just kind of getting it out there with nice touch, converting third downs, and you could see him getting excited, kind of giving the first down sign, smiling, kind of just exaggerated yells where maybe he didn't make a play, but you just felt like he was enjoying himself for probably the first time he has in the NFL so far. And that kind of leads an interesting question. If he plays pretty good the rest of the year, what do you do? Assuming you'd probably win some games there, so you wouldn't be in pole position to take Shedeur or Cam Ward. Do you run it back with him again? He's starting to get more comfortable. You just kind of beef up that offense a little bit more. I think you'd have to at least do the service of that because you don't want to move off of him and then end up seeing him somewhere else lighten it up in a better situation. Why not make the situation better for him? You hired Dave Canales, the OC for the Bucs and QB coach for the Panthers over the past couple years, and you saw what he did with Baker and with Geno, and it seems like it's starting to rub off a little bit on Bryce Young. Jatavion Sanders, I think it was 3rd-round draft pick out of Texas, and then Xavier Legette. They traded back into the 1st round to get him, wide receiver out of South Carolina. He's making some plays. Jalen Coker, I think he's an undrafted free agent this year, making plays. And that offensive line against a pretty tough defensive line in the Giants, it was good to see. And if you're a Panthers fan, you've won back-to-back games, and you couldn't be happier because this season is lost, obviously. And most likely, as a whole, your franchise is just always going to be in shambles because David Tepper is just a maniac. He is the NFC version of Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets. So that feels good. So that'll be a development we got to watch. Because if he goes over the stretch, you get 3 more wins because you don't have enough talent to really put a good run together. But if he's just showing you 60% completion percentage or better, limiting the turnovers, making key plays here and there when he needs to, I think you got to run it back with him and just add another weapon. Maybe a guy like Luther Burden. You have Xavier Legette in the slot or on the outside, Jatavian Sanders at tight end, add a guy like Luther Burden out of Missouri, kind of Jamar Chase style player over the middle, can break it at any time. And just give him some weapons to play with. Chuba Hubbard, another guy. Incredible game, 150 yards on the ground. So things are coming along in Carolina. The Giants, though, things are not coming along for you guys. And I'll tell you what, it's not Brian Daboll. I think he's one of the few bright spots on this team. You've got to bench Daniel Jones. It's just not working out. This ship has run its course, and its course was directly into a pile of rocks, and this ship has sunk. That's where we're at right now with Daniel Jones. 2 terrible interceptions today in critical moments, and I can't tell you how many times he missed wide open receivers where he didn't even throw the ball to them. It's not like, oh, he read it right, just missed. I mean, he held on to it, took a sack, or, dumped it off, even on one of the interceptions, had slant route wide open for the first down in the red zone, throws it late to the outside. Defender makes a good play on it, picked off. And you can tell Brian Daboll has just had it. And I would be pretty shocked if they kept wheeling him out. The thing is, Drew Lock, the backup, he's probably not the answer. So I can understand why they keep rolling Daniel Jones out, because you've invested money in him, so you want it to work out. But there's no doubt that at the end of this season, Daniel Jones will not be the quarterback for the Giants. Barring some crazy comeback, it's run its course. And Daniel Jones will be doing what Mac Jones is doing, playing for his career as a backup. So, if I'm a Giants fan, I'm excited about the team we have, because Brian Daboll seems like he's going to be a pretty good coach. He brought you guys to the playoffs with Daniel Jones, and this team is in it a lot, and he schemes well. You get a guy like Cam Ward in there with an electric arm. He can kind of harness some of that playmaking ability, and just having him hitting these reads, because he's got guys running wide open. You pair him with Theo Johnson, tight end rookie. Obviously, Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tyrone Tracy, tough fumble in overtime, but he had another nice game. There's a lot of pieces on that offense where you plug a young quarterback in there, you feel good about it. So, hold your head up, Giants. It sucks, but you just got to make it to the end of the year, and then you're doing what the Patriots did last year, hoping to get a guy like Drake May. Moving on to the next game. First 11 o'clock game we've got slated here. Vikings versus Jags. And if you changed the channel to watch a different game, I do not blame you. This game was boring. Vikings won 12-7. Mac Jones got his first start as a Jaguar, hometown team, and he did not play good. Threw 2 interceptions, had a chance to bring them down the field to win the game, and kind of threw up a Hail Mary on a first down with 40 seconds left that got picked off. Terrible play. Feels bad. Want Mac to succeed, but obviously he did not today. And granted, it was against the Vikings defense, which got back on track. Only allowed 7 points, forcing multiple turnovers. And side note, Cam Bynum, your safety, has the best celebrations in the league. What was it, a couple weeks ago? He hit the handshake from the Parent Trap when they were over in London. And then I think he had a Michael Jackson celebration one week. And then today he breaks out the gold medal Australian breakdancer celebration after he had that game-winning pick. Just got to give that guy the gold medal for celebrations when he gets turned over. Really entertaining. For the Vikings, though, because there's not much more left to say about the Jags, it's fair to say that this team is going to look vastly different come the start of the 2025 season. Not sure Balky or Peterson will be there. Probably not. But the Vikings, I'm a little bit worried. You got the win. That's great, obviously. But Sam Darnold throws 3 interceptions today. 1 in the end zone. You're starting to see Sam Darnold over the past couple weeks. Teams are getting film on him, and he's reverting back to that Sam Darnold that got kicked out of New York and got kicked out of Carolina. You're not going to make a deep run throwing interceptions in the end zone. And it's happened a couple weeks in a row now. So, with all the offensive weaponry that you have, that just can't be something that happens, especially with Kevin O'Connell as your play caller. He's got to protect the football. Your defense is so lights out. You can't give teams momentum or give them short fields. Make them go the distance, throw it away, or even take the sack in some instances. So if I'm a Vikings fan, you got to figure out a way as the coaching staff to nip that in the butt. Because, like I said, you're not going to get anywhere playing against teams like the Lions that can capitalize, the Packers, the Eagles, even the Commanders. It's just, you're going to get bounced in the first round. Moving on, America's Game of the Week. Got the Niners and the Bucks. Tom Brady calling his old team, I guess, / new team, since his old team, technically the Patriots. Bucks were his last 3 years of his career, and a pretty good last 3. Brock Purdy, boy, did he return to form. Over 350 yards, couple touchdowns. Ricky Pearsall, first touchdown of his young NFL career, just 70 days after he got shot in the chest. Miraculous recovery, 46 yards, breaking a tackle, going down. Awesome moment for him. It's just an incredible story. You know, last year we had Brian Robinson, got shot in the leg, comes back, I think, week 6. Ends up being a really good running back. He was out of Alabama, and he's played like he's from Alabama. Ricky Pearsall, man. If we're talking about just mentality game balls, you got to give it to him. And he's been a huge reason why they've strung together a couple wins since he's come back, because Brandon Ayuk went down. Deebo Samuel's been banged up. Christian McCaffrey finally back. Totally forgot about him. Over 100 total yards today. That's great to see. His Achilles didn't snap, so that's nice. But Brock Purdy, yeah, the spotlight is on him today, and he balled out. And when Brock Purdy plays like this Niners team can go far. Obviously, we've seen it the last 2 years. We hadn't seen it quite yet this year. And yeah, feels good if you're a Niners fan. You kind of feel like you're getting a little bit of your identity back. Last year, you lost 3 games in a row, then you went into your bye week, came out against a Jags team that was 7-3, beat the living piss out of them, 34-3. You went on your run all the way to the Super Bowl. Well, you just had your bye week. You get a little healthier. You're going to see this Niners team put together a couple solid performances and start to string those wins together, especially in a division where Rams play the Dolphins tomorrow. They should win. Cardinals won today against the Jets, which can't wait to jump into that. They're 6-4. You can't afford to lose any more games. Touching on the Bucks before we move on to the next game, this is just a gut-wrenching season for you guys. You start off 4-2. Baker's playing at an MVP level. And then Chris Godwin gets injured. Mike Evans goes down. And this season is just falling apart. You had a chance to win in Kansas City last week on Monday night to kind of keep your season alive. And Baker Mayfield bringing you guys down in the rain to tie the game. But you couldn't do it in overtime. Nobody can against Pat Mahomes. The season is kind of on its way out at this point. And it's tough. Because I think you're one of those teams that you get in the playoffs, you could definitely win a game. And maybe even 2 if you get hot. Because this team, very streaky. And you took it to the Niners for 4 quarters today. You really made them earn this one. Just tough. The bright news is Baker Mayfield, you signed him to a 3-year extension this offseason. You feel really good about that right now. Obviously, you're going to have to re-sign Godwin. Mike Evans, he's not getting any younger, but, you know, maybe you just bring in a guy like, you know, I mentioned, what's his name earlier, Luther Burden. Well, maybe you bring in a guy like Isaiah Bond out of Texas, or if you can, Teteroa McMillan, kind of Mike Evans .2 out of Arizona to try to ease that transition. Because Cade Otton, your tight end, he's come along. So there are bright spots to look forward to, and the season's not over. Anything can happen. Mike Evans will come back. But it's tough because this team, you can tell, it's got some grit. It's got some tenacity. It's just got no luck. So, sucks for the Bucks to lose this one, but Niners, you get back on track. That's what you need. Next game, Steelers and Commanders. And damn, was this a good game. And if you looked at the schedule before the season started and you saw Week 10 Steelers Commanders, 1 o'clock, you would have said, I'm probably not going to watch that game. But both these teams, only 2 losses each going into this. Jaden Daniels looking like one of the best players in the league. Russell Wilson undefeated as a Steelers quarterback. It lived up to the billing. And Russell Wilson moves on to 3-0 as the starter. Mike Tomlin caught a lot of flack, especially in the first half against that Jets game, or against the Jets on that Sunday night game. You know, a lot of boos flying around. Russell Wilson did not look good, but he caught fire, and you know, he's not old Russell, where we're used to him running around and just throwing these beautiful rainbow deep balls, and they're just dropping them in the bucket. The arm strength, not quite as there. Obviously, the athleticism, he's getting older, not there as well. But he's given these guys a chance. And when you trade for a guy like Mike Williams, who showed he still got it a little bit. You know, Jets traded him, thought he was washed. Aaron Rodgers, clearly, not a big fan. He ends up making a game-winning touchdown for you guys. Freiermuth, your big physical kind of throwback tight end. He can go up and snag it over the middle. But we can't have this conversation without talking about George Pickens. This guy makes more acrobatic catches than anybody I've seen in this era of football. He directly reminds me of Brandon Lloyd. And if you don't know who Brandon Lloyd is, played for the Niners, played for the Patriots. I think he played for the Broncos as well. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. These two guys, I don't know if it's making catches harder than they need to be. They make them either way. And George Pickens makes at least one circus catch every single week. I mean, he is the new Odell Beckham. And the catch he made in the end zone where Russell just kind of threw it up to him, and he makes this amazing contorting, like, you know, almost like a fadeaway jump shot snag in the corner of the end zone. It's incredible. You got to look it up if you haven't seen it. This is where Russell Wilson comes into factor, is he gives these guys a chance. And you've seen that over the past couple weeks. And that makes defenses play back. And Russell, you're not worried about him making silly turnovers. He doesn't have this threat with his legs like Justin Fields does, which I would like to see Arthur Smith put some red zone packages in, or some, you know, short conversion packages in with Justin Fields. You know, have Jalen Warren and Najee Harris on each side of him, and kind of like a triple option style, and make defenses really pick their poison. You probably pick up a lot of short to go situations like that. But needless to say, Russell has been the right choice, and you're 3-0 with him, and you pulled off another one. Commanders, you know, yeah, it stings. Of course, you never want to lose a game that you feel like is in your grasp, but you're only 7-3. And now you face the Eagles coming up on Thursday Night Football game, kind of for the division in a way at this point in the season. Could have huge ramifications. There's no reason to think that you're not going to be able to pull this one off. You know, the team we wanted to see, how are they going to match up against a team like the Steelers? You know, physical, obviously very good, well coached. Is this Commander team just kind of getting by, beating up on the bad teams and sneaking by the good ones? This team's for real. And they hung with them the entire game. They hung with the Ravens as well. You know, toughest division is the AFC North, and they've hung with them both times. I gotta say, the thing that I thought was weird in this game was the third down on within the final minute, or I think, was it fourth down? I think it was fourth down. Jaden Daniels throws a strike over the middle to Zach Ertz, and I don't know if it was the people who were calling the game, if they're in the control of the yellow line for the first down, or not quite sure. Either way, it looked like it was a first down to me. I know they had the marker a yard behind it, even though that was not where the chains were lined up. But it felt like the tip of that ball, when he caught it and possessed it, was at least worth a respot in measurement but they called it a fourth down, and the call stand, Pittsburgh got the ball back, and they converted a first down, and the game was over. Felt like that was a little bit weird. It certainly looked like he got the first down on that play, and it's not getting a lot of eyes on it right now, which when I was watching it live, certainly felt like it was a first down. So I'm not sure if that's going to get elaborated on, or maybe I'm crazy for thinking that, but they had it marked at the 40-yard line was the first down, but it was really the 41, and it looked like he broke the 41. So obviously nothing you could do about it now, but felt like that was a little bit weird. Moving on to my boys, Patriots take on the Bears. 1v3, Drake versus Caleb, and Drake outplayed him, and Drake didn't even play that good, but man, Caleb and that Bears offense, there is something not right, and it's getting ugly. How different of a conversation would this be if you end up not choking that game and giving up the Hail Mary against the Commanders? Maybe you go into Arizona and you're feeling better. You win that game. Now you're going in this game 6-2, probably going to beat up on the Patriots. But none of that happened. And now you're 4-5, and you've lost 3 in a row. Eberflus is on the hot seat. But my thing is, I don't think Eberflus is the problem. That Bears defense has played pretty damn good, and you can't control everything. Tyreek Stevenson jabbing at the fans and then coming over and tipping that ball to the Commanders player in the end zone. You can't put that all on Eberflus. Yeah, you got to be able to hone some of that in, but I highly doubt going into the game, part of the plan was, okay, on the Hail Mary that they're going to throw as time expires, it's going to be a 12-second play. Tyreek, don't talk shit to the fan. And then when you do turn around, don't run and tip the ball to the guy you should be covering. That's obviously impossible. It's not going to happen. The next game, you don't like seeing them kind of mail it in against the Cardinals. But tonight they got dominated. Today. But it's on the offensive side. The defense played a pretty damn good game. They're just on the field for so much. I think you got to fire Shane Waldron. He, to me, the Patriots were rumored to be interviewing for the head coach or for the offensive coordinator. I was like, put latex on both hands. Stay the fuck away. Do not. And you see this with Kellen Moore. Sometimes they recycle these offensive coordinators that got fired. And it's like, you got fired for a reason. If I got fired from Lowe's for insubordination, would Home Depot hire me? That doesn't make any sense. So why are we doing it with offensive coordinators? Give somebody up and coming a shot. And Shane Waldron, there's just no rhythm to this offense. Caleb looks out of sorts. He's regressing hard. The play calling, like I said, no fluidity to it. They're not scheming anybody open, and you've got plenty of weapons. The run game at times disappears. Seems like they don't even try to establish it. Give credit to the Patriots, even though the run game sucks most of the time, they at least try to establish it. DJ Moore, though, this situation is getting weird. We saw him roll his ankle last week and kind of just walk to the bench while the play's going on and sit down. And everybody's defending him, saying, well, he stepped out of bounds and yada, yada. It's like, listen, you can become ineligible like Hunter Henry did last week against the Titans. You still are in the game. You have a signal maybe for your quarterback to know not to throw you the ball, but you don't just walk off the field and go sit on the bench unless something is seriously wrong. And you can see it all the way back in week 2 when they took on the Texans. His body language was not having it. And you're wondering if in practice Caleb is just doing all this dancing and he's getting frustrated saying, just throw me the ball, I'm open, and if I'm not, I'll catch it. And if he's frustrated with Shane Waldron saying, dude, I'm one of the best receivers in the league. How can you not scheme me open? It's getting ridiculous. I think Waldron has got to go. And DJ Moore, you wonder, is it a Waldron issue? Is it an Eberflus issue? Or is it a Williams issue? And if it's a Williams issue, you got to imagine he's on the trade block in the offseason. You're obviously not going to trade him during the middle of the season. But you got Cole Kmet, you got DeAndre Swift, you got Rome Odunze. So you have a little bit of wiggle room there. Maybe you could steal a second round pick from a team like the Patriots that could use a wide receiver who's really still in his prime and obviously not happy in the situation that he's in. And you wonder, how much did Justin Fields getting traded have to do with this? You know, a lot of players on that team liked Justin. And DJ Moore had a couple really nice years, a really nice year with Justin Fields. So is he disgruntled because of that as well? Just a weird situation. On top of all that, too, you give up 9 sacks today against the Pats team that, I watch every snap. Felt like we've gotten 2 sacks this whole season. We got 9 today. And some of that was Caleb holding onto the ball, and some of that was just shitty offensive line play and not doing anything to get your guys open. And newsflash, Marcus Jones getting cooked a lot. And Keenan Allen was working him. We don't have cover linebackers. We're on our 3rd and 4th safeties. Just embarrassing. Embarrassing, especially with Caleb now losing to Jaden Daniels, who was the 2nd overall pick, and now Drake May. So number 1 overall pick loses to the 2 quarterbacks that got selected after him. That's not a great look. That's not a great self-esteem booster for him as well. And you feel for Caleb. You know, he's made a lot of plays this year where you're like, yeah, that's the guy. But the accuracy, not a thing that was touted as an issue. A lot of people said, well, he's just got to get out of this Superman era, his kind of put the cape on, do it all myself. He's just got to read it and throw it. It's not been the issue. Obviously, yeah, he's been dancing, but the accuracy, he was missing some throws, simple out routes, slants over the middle, spot routes, just not even close. And Drake May, the guy who you said had the accuracy issue, definitely was not perfect in this game. But he made the plays when he needed to make the plays. And he had a couple nice scrambles to kind of pick up some yards, kind of moving up in the pocket, side-eyeing it out to Hunter Henry to move the chains. You like what you see if you're a Pats fan out of Drake May. You're going to live with some turnovers. And he's going to start to kind of get in the groove, hit some of these big plays. He hasn't quite found his escapability to hit those plays down deep over the middle of the field or on the sidelines. But those things are going to come along. And for a team where coming back from London, everybody was shitting on Gerard Mayo, saying the locker room is lost. They don't respect him. He called them soft. Well, you've won 2 out of 3. You had a game-winning drive against the Jets, and now you dominate the Bears in Chicago. And really, you almost beat the Texans. So you've been in all 3 of these games in 2-1. Now you're going back home, you're playing the Rams. You feel good. It's a great win. So we're already at 3 wins. You had 4 all of last year. Everybody talking about Gerard Mayo, Alex Van Pelt, Covington wasn't ready. Like, we only won 4 games last year with the greatest coach of all time. We're already at 3 wins through week 10. So let's calm down. I still want to be in the Travis Hunter sweepstakes, but a game like today really pushes you to say, shit, we should probably go out and draft Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell. Because that offensive line, the interior especially, needs some loving. But shout out to the defense. 9 sacks. No turnovers, though, for the Bears. Pretty wild. Next up, we've got the Bills and the Colts. And in this game, the one thing that kind of became apparent was the Colts just need to go back to Anthony Richardson. The Joe Flacco experience, 2 weeks old, and it feels way older than that. You put him in, you thought that he gave you the best chance to win in both games. He's just looked like a backup QB. And sometimes you get that energetic push, kind of like when a team fires the head coach and the next week they come out, they play hot, and they end up stealing a game from a team they shouldn't beat. It's how it is with backup QB sometimes. They come in for a drive or 2 during the game and lead you to a touchdown and a field goal, you end up winning. And you're like, well, should this guy be the starter? We saw it so many times with Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. And then they start for a couple weeks. You're like, okay, that was just a facade. It was a mirage in the desert. This guy's no good. And you don't want to rag on Joe Flacco too much because, he's won a Super Bowl. He's had a great career. He's made a shit ton of money. But he is 40 years old. And he's kind of a dying breed of pocket QBs with no mobility. And you drafted Anthony Richardson 4th overall last year. You knew that he was going to be a project, and you know you're going to live through a lot of growing pains. And obviously you had the issue where he taps out, I think more out of naivety than anything. Hasn't played a ton of football. You're just going to have to live through some of it. We're living through it in New England, which granted Drake May, better QB prospect and player than Anthony Richardson. But you don't want to go into the draft next year saying, well, we started Joe Flacco for 6 weeks, so we don't really know what Anthony Richardson is. It's like, just get it over with. Pull off the Band-Aid. You've got nice infrastructure there with Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. Good offensive line. Figure out what you got in Anthony Richardson. Okay, this Joe Flacco thing, it's run its course. And it was fun while it happened. And we're going to see him probably a couple more times because Anthony Richardson plays a style of football where he forgot that injuries are a thing. So Joe Flacco will get playing time. The Bills, there's not much to say. Defense played pretty good. 3 turnovers. Josh Allen got picked off twice, but just throwing his body around and showing how much of a threat he is on the ground. Grabbing a 13-yard rushing touchdown. The Bills win. They move to 7-2. Now they take on the Chiefs next week, which we'll talk about the Chiefs next. That's a huge game. It's game of the week, no doubt. What I want to see kind of doubling back to the Patriots, the Bills do a great job of scheming runs for Josh Allen. And he's big, he can take the beating. I want to see the Patriots get creative in some of these short yardage situations in the red zone where everything is condensed. Get a couple QB powers, a couple read options. The Bills do it better than anybody. So, Patriots, you got a similar mold in a guy. I want to see some of that. Moving on to the Broncos and Chiefs, and man, oh man. The Chiefs just keep doing it. It's incredible. Never seen anything like this. And of course, they're going to get compared to the 07 Patriots because they were undefeated for the whole regular season, and Chiefs are now 9-0 because of an amazing blocked field goal to win the game. They were up by 2. 35-yard kick. While time expired, Broncos would have won. Would have went into Arrowhead with a rookie QB and beat the undefeated Chiefs. Super Bowl defending 2-time champs. Chiefs. And Leo Chenal blocks the game-winning kick, which you don't see that in general, especially on 35-yarders, chip shots, where you put some air on it and it just carries through the goalpost. But the fascinating point in this, which is where I'm going to compare them to the San Francisco 49ers, the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. The Niners do not put any stock into their special teams, and it bites them in the ass time and time again, where the Chiefs have got one of the best special teams in the league, great coaching, and they make plays like this that keep them undefeated. Leo Chenal, the guy who blocked it, said, during the game, on extra points and field goals, I noticed that my blocker was light on his toes, so I felt like at a point in the game, a bull rush would be effective to getting to be able to block the kick. And if you watch the replay, he pushed the guy right over, dives and blocks it. What an incredible, cerebral approach to the game. To notice that, okay, this guy's kind of leaning back a little bit. I think I could probably push him over and go block a kick. And then you do it to win the game. That's why the Chiefs are undefeated. They keep making these plays. And it's a two-sided coin. You feel like, okay, just like the Lions, you're figuring out ways to win because you're going to have that confidence in the playoffs. You're going to be in tight, gritty games that when you can lean back on your regular season, said, yeah, well, we're 9-0. We've won 9 gritty games. So that's great. On the flip side, why are you in all these gritty games? You know, it's not like the Broncos are the Ravens or the Bills. You should be beating these teams handedly, especially at home. You know, Bucks in the rain without their 2 best weapons. How come it's going to overtime? So there's something weird there that if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm not worried, but I am cautious about. Because there are going to be some good teams that come out. They might smack you in the mouth. And I was telling my girlfriend who's a Chiefs fan, I'm worried about the Bengals if I'm the Chiefs come playoff time. That'd be the one team I'm worried about. They kind of got your number. You barely beat them earlier this year. They go on a run, get into the playoffs. That means they went on a hot streak. And you keep playing like this, the Ravens are going to beat you the second time. The Bills are going to beat you next week if you leave them in it. Bo Nix, rookie quarterback, almost got you this week. So, we saw with the Eagles last year, they kind of collapsed towards the end of the season. Well, the Chiefs, they're just way better coached. So you think they're going to probably get better, and they are starting to kind of figure it out. That defense is legit. Travis Kelce has woken up. He's kind of got his swagger back. Maybe he's a little bit, too party heavy in the offseason, hanging out with his new babe. We've all been there. I put on some pounds when I started dating my amazing girlfriend. It happens. It's life. You get complacent. He's starting to maybe shed some of that weight, playing like the all-pro that he is. So, one more thing on this game. Obviously, shout out to the Broncos, played a hell of a game. Bo Nix looked great, but let's calm down on the comparisons to the 2007 Patriots, okay? And I'm not saying this as a homer. We went undefeated during the regular season and barely lost in the Super Bowl. It's heartbreaking. I still think about it, and I still shed a tear or two. That 2007 Patriots team, during the regular season, they had a stretch where they were beating every team by like 30 points. I mean, it was embarrassing. There's never been a more dominant stretch by an NFL team in the regular season than that 2007 Pats team from like week 2 to week 10. They were shitting on teams. They weren't barely squeaking by. They squeaked by a couple games at the end of the season, but they were pissing on people, and they were telling them it's raining, and then just said, psych, it's piss. What are you going to do about it? So let's calm down. I want to see the Chiefs get a couple dominant wins. Then you feel better about it. But obviously, they're Super Bowl favorites right now, and they should be. They're 9-0. Like, damn. Final 1 o'clock game, we got the Falcons and the Saints, and I'll tell you what, this is a classic Falcons game, or classic team where you're unsure about it. Classic Cowboys, classic Dolphins, where, all right, they're starting to put together some games, and then they drop a game they're not supposed to. Saints fire their head coach, Dennis Allen. They're 2-7, lost 7 games in a row after starting 2-0 and lighting the world on fire. Falcons, firm grip on the steering wheel, driving to a division title. And they fucking lose to the Saints. I mean, is there anything more classic Falcons, especially reminisce of the 28-3? Fun joke for you. Why is 19 afraid of 20? Because 28-3. Shout out Pats. Shout out Super Bowls. Yeah, typical Falcons, man. It's tough. You still feel good. Panthers aren't going to win the division. Saints aren't going to win the division. Bucks, they're too beat up to win the division, but you can't be dropping games like this. We can't take you seriously. Right now, you're the team that's going to win 10, 11 games and get bounced in the first round to the Commanders or the Cardinals or, the Packers. You're not going to beat one of those teams playing like this. When you play to your potential, you're pretty damn good. But losing to the Saints, you can't take them seriously. So right now, you guys, you're in the backseat, and I've turned this car around. And if you behave better in the future, we'll head back to Dairy Queen to get some ice cream. But for right now, we're headed home. One more thing on the Falcons, I guess, before dropping the mic on them. Bijan. Starting to kind of reclaim that number 1 running back role in this offense. Over 110 yards today. A couple touchdowns. Getting a majority of the carries. There was points in this season where you're like, is Bijan banged up? Is he not performing in practice? How come Algier is getting all these touches? Bijan was taken 8th overall last year. Well, he's pretty dominant over the past couple weeks. He's looking like, every single penny is worth it on that rookie contract for a top 10 player. So that's nice. And obviously, Derek Carr, pretty good game. A lot of the time, his stats are hollow, but 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Solid game for Derek Carr. Bounce back game after sending Chris Olave to the hospital. Psych. Well, not psych, but Probably didn't need to bring it up, but I did. Anyways, moving on. Titans versus Chargers. Chargers stay in the win column. Beat the Titans 27-17. Not much about this game. You know, Justin Herbert, I will say, quietly having one of his better seasons. Not a ton of yards, still under 2,000. I think he's got 1,800. But 11 touchdowns, only one interception, being very smart with the football. They've used J.K. Dobbins, who didn't realize this, had over 2,000 yards rushing at Ohio State in his final year, and then came out, was really dominant with the Ravens his first couple years, and then obviously we knew tears his Achilles, tears his ACL, misses 2 full seasons, and then starts the season incredibly hot. They got Gus Edwards. You know, both guys from the Ravens, one guy from Big Ten. Jim Harbaugh coached against J.K. Dobbins, obviously saw that this guy has talent, and they're leaning on him. And, you know, let's just dream for a moment. I really hope the Chargers draft Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. And if you paid attention to my videos, you would have watched him. Running back, Boise State, Heisman finalist already. Freaking incredible. Would be perfect in that workhorse environment that Jim Harbaugh wants to cultivate. They're just doing what they need to do to win. Playing solid defense. And, yeah, this team's dangerous. You know, do they have all the pieces you need to make a deep playoff run? Not really. But you got a great head coach and a great quarterback. So that's the 2 most important pieces. And, yeah, you just feel good about the Chargers of how they're playing. Just sound fundamental football. Not beating themselves, with they're so known to do. And winning the games they should. And that game against the Cardinals, as close as it was, starting to seem like it wasn't, you know, an embarrassment. The Cardinals pretty damn good, so Chargers moved to 6-3. Gonna be a good game coming up against the Chiefs. Excited for that one. Titans, real quick. They're close. They beat the Patriots last week. You know, they're 2-7. Not having a great season, obviously, but they're close. They've got pieces. Jeffrey Simmons, Ladarius Sneed, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley. There's some pieces there that you feel good about. Will Levis actually played pretty decent today. You know, obviously our offensive line, J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, that's a pretty solid left side of the line. So you got some infrastructure there. You know, Ty J. Spears, your second running back. You got some pieces there that you feel good about. If you can get some consistent play out of quarterback, maybe add another guy on the defensive side of the ball, this team might not be too far off from being competitive. Not from being a Super Bowl contender. Let's not get crazy. Moving on to the next game, Eagles-Cowboys. Nothing surprising here. Eagles take a dump on the Cowboys' chest. I would say no consent was given as well. Unfortunate for Cowboys fan, your season has just become a whirling dervish, to quote Will Ferrell from Kicking and Screaming, because there's a lot of that going on. Probably more screaming than kicking, because there's not a lot of fight in this Cowboys team anymore. Cooper Rush comes in. Dak Prescott probably out for the season. At one point, you had Trey Lance in there, and if you'd have told the Cowboys that in Week 10, you'd be pretty much out of playoff contention and Trey Lance was playing, they might not even tune into any of the season. So, you know, at this point, what do? You just extended Dak. He's the highest paid player in the league. 4 more years. He's already in his 30s. He's been wildly inconsistent. You know, he's had great years like last year. MVP type performance. Chokes in the playoffs. Then he has some down years, and he's been down this year. Now he's out for the season with that hamstring injury, which apparently some of the hamstring was torn off the bone, which, oh my gosh, that must fucking hurt. But where do you go? You know, how is he going to recover from this? You've paid him all this money, most of it guaranteed. You've just given CD a ton of money, and you're going to have to pay Parsons. You're looking at half your cap and 3 guys, one of them, which, should you not have? You know, how exciting would it have been? Okay, yeah, we've got Jonathan Mingo, who you just trade for, which everybody's acting like the Panthers fleeced you, but he's a second-round pick last year. You gave up a fourth for him. Pretty good value if you ask me. Then you got CeeDee Lamb. You need a running back, but decent offensive line. You got some pieces on defense. Tell me you plug Shedeur Sanders into this offense? You don't instantly get all the buzz in the NFL and a guy who can sling it all over the yard. So a lot of weird questions in Dallas right now. And Jerry Jones he's going to somehow figure out a way to keep all the attention on him, but we don't need to pay attention to the Cowboys anymore. Their season's done. Dak's out. There's no running game. CeeDee Lamb probably should just get all the targets. Why even try to run the ball at this point? Just see what you got in Mingo and keep CD happy. That's what I would do. Eagles, you did what you needed to do. Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts proving to be one of the most lethal running back quarterback combos we have ever seen in our generation. And you won this handily. I think 34-6 was the final score, or 38-6, one of those two. Good game. Defense is really coming along. Cooper DeJean having, pretty good past couple weeks. He was your second-round pick out of Iowa. Quinion Mitchell. Your pass rush is starting to get home a little bit. Zach Bond, linebacker, who I gave game ball to in week 1. He's flying all around. So Eagles 8-2. Got a big game coming against the Commanders up on Thursday night. Should be awesome. This is what you wanted to see. And it felt like we're not that far removed from thinking, are the Eagles going to fire Nick Sirianni? And should they just mail it in for the season? Well, now they're 8-2. And they've put some really good weeks together, and they've won some good games. They kind of dominated the Jaguars, even though Jags started to come back, but they beat the Bengals by 20. They're feisty. And now you shit on the Cowboys. So, Eagles fans, doesn't feel like you're 8-2, but you are. Sweet. Moving on to the final game we're going to talk about before we hit the game balls. And this kind of works in tandem with the last game we just talked about. Jets versus Cardinals. The Eagles took a dump on the Cowboys' chest. Well, the Cardinals said, that's cute. We just ate a lot of Chinese and took a laxative. And we squatted over the Jets. That's exactly what happened today. Pretty fucking incredible. 31-6. Wasn't even that close. Jets are embarrassment. They give their fans hope, and I feel bad for the Jets fans. They give them hope. They win that Thursday night game. They say, maybe we will go on a run. And there was a Jets fan saying, we've got the pieces. I think we can go on a run. And then you lay an egg like this against the Cardinals, 31-6. Wasn't competitive at one time. Aaron Rodgers, he's the problem. I honestly think that coach could be decent. But this team is so dysfunctional on so many levels. I don't even know where to start. Same with the Cowboys. This team's done. We close the book. Remove the bookmarker. Don't even need to fold the page. It's not worth reopening it. Just read a new book. Not looking good. The defense, Sauce has regressed. Multiple players on that defense have regressed. You bring in Devontae. He drops a pass in the end zone. Aaron couldn't hit water if he fucking was thrown in the middle of the ocean. It's bad. It's really bad. This is probably one of the worst seasons I've ever seen from a team, considering the expectations and everything they put into it. You fire your coach, you're only 2-3. And since then, you've won one game. And your defense has been giving up pretty much 30 points every game. You send out a third-round pick for Devontae, and will he even be back next year? Will Aaron be back? I mean, you might as well blow it up. I understand not blowing it up last week because you got to hold on to the hope. But to come the offseason, I think you get rid of Aaron, get rid of Devontae, keep your young running backs, keep Garrett Wilson. you got to start moving some of these pieces. I think everybody besides Sauce, who I think is a tad overrated, I'd rather have Stingley. Same draft, I think almost back-to-back. Sauce is a tad overrated, but if you get, somebody in there like an Aaron Glenn, I'm not sure he would take that job, DC, for the Lions. We got to stave off this regression, but keep Sauce, you keep Quinnen, you keep Quincy, keep Garrett, keep Braylon, and you keep Brees, and you keep Fashiono and Vera Tucker. So there's about 5 to 10 guys that you want to keep on this team. Everybody else, see ya. If you could trade them, trade them. Or if you release them, release them. You got to start from scratch. This thing is so damn dysfunctional. GM got to go. Everything about it. You're not going to just kind of put some duct tape on this thing and make a run next year. Patriots are going to be better. Dolphins will be better. The Bills will be better. This AFC is only going to get better. You can't roll the same product out that's had you 3-7 at this point next year and expect it to be better. It's not going to happen. After the Jets, aside from the Jets, we got to talk about the Cardinals, and then we'll wrap this thing up. We just talked about the Eagles, Jalen and Saquon being the best quarterback, running back duo. I think we got to show some love to Kyler Murray and James Conner. Man, what a tandem. This team is clicking. 6-4. They destroyed the Bears last week. They've beaten the Chargers. They whooped the Rams. They took it to the Jets. This team seems pretty legit. And they're first in the division right now, 6-4. And Kyler and Marvin, they've figured out that connection. Trey McBride, he does not get enough credit for being one of the young stud tight ends. James Conner, man, he reminds me of a transformer. Can just transform into a Mack truck and break tackle after tackle. I think he leads the league in broken tackles this year. That's almost 30. Incredible. So that wide receiver, Elijah. That quarterback, running back tandem, dynamic. 2 completely different styles. One jitterbug, flying all over the place. Kind of looks like a toddler running around on the field. And then, like I just mentioned, you've got a behemoth of a running back that says, I'm not going down unless you send 3 guys my way. So, excited for the Cardinals, They got really nice uniforms as well. And Gannon, their head coach, they're starting to, tally up some wins that are showing you that, all right, like this team, they've been feisty for the past year and a half. They just haven't been getting the wins to prove it. And when you take an algebra test, teacher says, show your work. Well, they're showing their work, but they're actually getting the right result now. So the formula was right, and now you're getting the correct answer. And so feels good if you're a Cardinals fan. This team, you got to put it up there as a legit team. You're probably going to make the playoffs. So hopefully, I want to see Kyler Murray in the playoffs, point blank. He's one of the most entertaining players of my generation. Finally, we're going to do game balls, and we don't got to travel too far for the first one. Offense, Kyler Murray. 266 passing yards, only 2 incompletions on the day, 3 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground. What a game against what we say is a great defense in the Jets. Completely dismantled them. Is really finding his stride. Seems like he's fully back from that ACL injury and has just established a nice connection with McBride and Harrison. The run game is lethal. So game ball goes to Kyler Murray. On defense, we got Carlton Davis the third. 2 massive interceptions for the Lions tonight. One while Dan Campbell was still talking about how we need turnovers, and the second to prevent a wide open touchdown. Covered all that range. Big time. They don't win that game without him making those plays. So that defense, I'll tell you what, they played pretty damn feisty tonight. Only allowing 23 points when you gave up 5 turnovers on offense against a pretty good Texans offense as well. Aaron Glenn's got that team playing well on defense. Especially they lose Aiden Hutchinson, but Alan McNeil, Alex Anzalone, Brian Branch, who, and we're talking game balls, Brian Branch, Jalen Petre, he's on the Texans. You got to put them in consideration. Branch is flying all over the place. Second year out of Alabama. Aaron Glenn, first of all, he's going to be up for a head coach position this year. 41 interceptions in his career as a player. Did not know that. Incredible. That's an incredible career. Borderline Hall of Fame. So give that guy his flowers. Carlton Davis taking the mold of his defensive coordinator, adding 2 of his own. And finally, the coach game ball. The first ever Elijah Talks ball. Coach game ball goes to Darren Rizzi. Ever heard of him? I hadn't. Saints interim head coach. They fired Dennis Allen. They lost 7 games in a row going against the Falcons, who are playing well. They're hot. They're in first place in the division, and they pull off the upset 20-17 in his first ever game as a head coach. Round of applause for Darren Rizzi. Incredible feeling. He came out and said, not gonna lie, I'm a transparent dude. I might have clogged the toilet before the game. I can imagine. Probably nervous as all get out. Well, guess what? This team responded, and he led them to a victory. Shout out Darren Rizzi. Shout out Carlton Davis. And shout out Kyler Murray. And above all else, shout out New England Patriots, baby, back in the win column. So this was Elijah Talks ball. Talk for a long time. Hour and 11 minutes. Holy shit. My girlfriend's probably irritated. She's like, dude, trying to listen to TikToks. I got to keep this shit on low volume. You're talking about football. I heard it all day. Had to get the message out, guys. Enjoy Monday night. Dolphins versus the Rams should be a fun one. And then we'll recap that. So pay attention to that. And then, yeah, Thursday night, Commanders, Eagles. That should be awesome. Hope you enjoyed week 10. It's almost over. Time's flying. And yeah, that's it. Peace out.